He was young, powerful, and rich beyond imagination. People in the city whispered his name with both respect and fear. His name was Adrian King, the millionaire who had built his empire with his own hands. Expensive cars waited for him, glass towers carried his name, and his bank account was larger than most could even dream of. But behind all this success, there was something missing. Adrian had no space for love in his life. Every morning, he entered his office with a cold face. The moment he walked in, silence covered the whole building. Employees stopped their small talks, typing speed increased, and no one dared to look directly into his eyes. His rules were simple: work hard, stay quiet, and never ask about his personal life. People often said he was made of stone. He never smiled, never joked, never allowed emotions inside his world. For him, feelings were weakness. Love, especially, was something he truly hated. In his mind, love was nothing but a trap that distracted people from their goals. He had no time for flowers, for romance, or for dreams that could break so easily. But what people did not know was the hidden reason behind this cold heart. Somewhere in his past, he had been hurt deeply. That wound had turned into anger, and anger had turned into silence. Now, success was his shield. Money was his only partner. In meetings, Adrian's voice was sharp, his words clear, and his decisions final. If someone made a mistake, he did not forgive easily. Some workers called him cruel, while others called him focused. But no one truly understood the man behind the millionaire's mask. His office was as cold as his heart. Everything was black, white, and grey. No colors, no pictures, no family portraits. The only sound was the ticking of the clock and the clicking of his laptop keys. Even when the sun was bright outside, his curtains remained closed. It was almost as if he wanted to live in darkness, far away from warmth. Yet, there was a strange attraction about him. His power, his confidence, his sharp eyes, all made him unforgettable. People feared him, but they also admired him. Some even envied him. But Adrian never cared. He believed emotions made men weak, and he refused to be weak ever again. One evening, while the city lights sparkled outside, Adrian stood in his office, staring at the skyline. "Love is useless," he whispered to himself. His reflection on the glass window looked strong, but his eyes carried a loneliness that no one else could see. He told himself again and again that he did not need anyone, that he was better alone. But deep inside, a silent emptiness waited to be noticed. The world around him kept moving, but his life was stuck in a cold routine. Work, meetings, deals, money, and then more work. No laughter, no friendship, no love. Just numbers on screens and signatures on papers. To everyone else, this life looked perfect. But to Adrian, it was a prison he had built with his own hands. People sometimes wondered, why does he hate love so much? But no one had the courage to ask him. His silence was stronger than any answer. And then, destiny decided to play its first move. The next morning, something unusual happened. The HR department prepared for a new intern to join the company. It was a small decision, one that Adrian himself had not even paid attention to. For him, interns were just passing shadows, people who came, worked for a short time, and then disappeared. He did not care who they were. But this time, fate had chosen differently. When Adrian walked into the office, carrying the same cold look, no one imagined that his life was about to change. The new intern had already arrived. She was waiting in the corner, nervous but hopeful, with a file in her hands. Unlike everyone else, she did not lower her eyes when Adrian passed. Instead, she looked straight at him, with innocence and courage shining together. For the first time in years, Adrian noticed something he could not control. Something he did not understand. But he quickly turned away. To him, she was just another worker. Nothing more. Or so he thought. Because what he did not know was this: the girl standing there was not just an intern. She was the key to a story he had never planned for. She was the storm that would break his walls. And slowly, without his permission, his heart would no longer belong only to himself. Her name was Emily. She was not rich, not powerful, and not experienced. She was just a simple girl with a simple dream: to learn, to grow, and to prove herself. When she entered the tall glass building for her very first day as an intern, her hands trembled. She carried only a notebook, a pen, and a heart full of hope. Everyone in the office looked at her with curiosity. Some smiled politely, others whispered behind her back. "She won't last long," one of them muttered. "Nobody survives here for more than a few weeks. The boss is too strict." Emily heard them, but she chose not to listen. She reminded herself, "I came here to learn. I will not run away." When Adrian King walked into the office that morning, the air froze as usual. Employees lowered their heads, afraid to even breathe loudly. But Emily, standing with her file, could not help looking at him. His presence was heavy, his eyes sharp, and his steps confident. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Adrian glanced at her, just for a second. His expression did not change. To him, she was just another intern, another name on the long list of people who came and went. He walked past her as if she was invisible. But Emily noticed something others didn't. Behind his cold face, behind those sharp eyes, she saw a loneliness. It was only a flash, but it stayed in her mind. Her first task was simple, organizing files and making notes during meetings. She did everything with a smile, even when others ignored her. Many workers found her unusual. "Why is she smiling so much?" they whispered. "Doesn't she know where she is? This is not a place for kindness. This is war." But Emily was different. She believed kindness was never weakness. She believed even the coldest places needed a little light. Days passed, and Adrian began to notice her in small ways. At first, he found her annoying. She greeted him every morning with a cheerful "Good morning, sir." No one else in the office dared to do that. He ignored her, but she continued anyway. One evening, while most workers rushed to leave, Emily stayed late. She saw an older employee struggling with heavy files. Without thinking twice, she ran to help. She carried the files herself, smiling as if it was nothing. Adrian, who happened to be passing by, stopped for a moment. He watched silently. No one had ever done such a thing in his company before. Something strange moved inside him, but he quickly shook it off. "It doesn't matter," he told himself. "She is just an intern. Nothing more." But fate had other plans. During a big meeting with foreign investors, Adrian was explaining complicated numbers. Suddenly, one of the investors asked a tricky question. Before Adrian could answer, Emily, who had been taking notes quietly, raised her hand and spoke. Everyone gasped. No intern had ever dared to speak during Adrian's meetings. Her voice trembled at first, but then she explained clearly, using simple words that impressed even the investors. She spoke with confidence, respect, and intelligence. When she finished, the room fell silent. Adrian looked at her, surprised. He had expected her to fail, but instead, she had saved the moment. For the first time, his cold mask cracked just slightly. "Not bad," he said quietly. It was the closest thing to a compliment anyone had heard from him in years. Emily's heart skipped. She didn't need his approval, but those two words gave her strength. She smiled, not for him, but for herself. From that day, things started to change, even if Adrian refused to admit it. He began to notice her laughter from across the room, the way she treated everyone with respect, and the way she never complained even about small tasks. She was not like the others. Yet, Adrian's pride fought against his heart. He reminded himself again and again, "Love is weakness. I don't need anyone. She means nothing to me." But deep inside, he knew that something was different this time. Emily, on the other hand, felt no fear of him. She respected him as her boss, but she was not afraid. She believed that even the toughest people had hearts, and maybe, just maybe, his heart was waiting for someone to find it. Still, both of them stood on opposite sides of a silent war, her kindness against his coldness, her hope against his fear. And destiny was watching closely. The days slowly turned into weeks, and something unusual began to happen in the cold empire of Adrian King. The employees noticed it first, though no one dared to say it out loud. Their boss, the man known for his stone face, had started to change, just a little, just enough to be noticed. It began with small moments. One morning, when Emily greeted him with her usual cheerful "Good morning, sir," Adrian didn't ignore her. Instead, he gave a short nod. It was nothing for most people, But for Adrian, it was almost like a smile. The office staff whispered to each other in shock. "Did you see that?" He nodded at her. Emily herself didn't think too much about it. She continued being herself, helping others, working hard, and spreading a warmth that the office had never known before. She didn't try to impress anyone, she simply believed in doing the right thing. And that was exactly what Adrian could not ignore. He began to notice her in ways he had never noticed anyone before. When she laughed, the sound reached him even through closed doors. When she encouraged a nervous co-worker, he watched quietly from a distance. And when she stayed late to finish extra tasks, he found himself wondering why someone so simple cared so much about work. Adrian told himself it was nothing. He was only observing her because she was different. But deep inside, he knew it was more than that. One evening, he passed by the break room and saw Emily cleaning spilled coffee from the floor. That job wasn't hers, but she did it anyway. An employee nearby said, "You don't need to do this. You're just an intern." Emily smiled. "Being an intern doesn't mean I shouldn't help. Kindness is free." Adrian froze. Those words hit him harder than he expected. For years, he had built walls around his heart, telling himself kindness was weakness, love was useless. But here was a girl who believed the opposite, and somehow, she looked stronger than anyone else in the room. That night, Adrian stayed awake longer than usual. He sat by his window, the city lights shining below him. His mind repeated her words again and again, "Kindness is free." Why did those simple words disturb him so much? Why did they make his heart feel heavy? The next day, during another big meeting, Adrian's sharp voice filled the room. He questioned his managers, cut their excuses, and demanded results. Everyone was nervous, except Emily. She sat quietly, writing notes as usual. But at one point, she raised her hand and softly said, "Excuse me, sir. I think there's another way to solve this problem." The room fell silent. No one had the courage to interrupt Adrian King, yet this in turn had done it again. Adrian turned to her, his eyes narrowing. "Another way," he repeated. Emily nodded, her voice steady. "Yes. If we treat the clients not just as numbers but as people, they will trust us more. Profit will follow naturally." The managers stared at her in shock. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then, instead of anger, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Explain." Emily explained with confidence, and to everyone's surprise, Adrian listened. Truly listened. By the end of her explanation, the investors were nodding in agreement. Adrian gave a small, approving gesture. After the meeting, the employees whispered again. "What's happening?" The boss actually listened to an intern. Adrian ignored the whispers, but inside, he was restless. Something about Emily's courage, her kindness, her pure way of thinking, it was breaking through the ice he had built around himself. One late evening, as Emily walked out of the office, she saw Adrian standing near his car. For the first time, he spoke to her directly. "Why do you always smile, even when people don't treat you well?" Emily looked at him, surprised. No one expected the boss to ask such a question. She answered simply, "Because life is too short to waste on anger. Smiles cost nothing, but they can change someone's whole day." Adrian didn't reply. He just stood there, staring at her as if she had spoken a language he had forgotten long ago. That night, when he returned home, he looked into the mirror and saw not the powerful millionaire, but a lonely man who had begun to feel again. It scared him. Feelings scared him more than anything else. He told himself to stay away, to control his heart. But the cracks had already begun to form. The walls were no longer unbreakable. The change inside Adrian King was small but real. For years, he had lived like a machine, cold, controlled, and untouchable. But now, every time Emily walked into a room, the silence around him felt less heavy. Every time she spoke, her words stayed in his mind longer than he wished. Yet, no one knew the truth. No one knew why Adrian hated love so deeply, why he built walls so high. He carried a secret wound, hidden in the shadows of his past. One rainy evening, while most employees rushed home, Emily stayed late to finish some reports. She was surprised to find Adrian still in his office. His jacket was on the chair, his sleeves rolled up, and his eyes fixed on old documents. But his face looked different that night, not cold, but tired, almost broken. Emily hesitated before knocking. "Sir, should I leave these reports here?" Adrian looked up slowly. For a moment, he seemed far away, lost in memories. Then he nodded. "Leave them." But as Emily turned to go, she noticed a photograph on his desk. It was half hidden under some papers. A younger Adrian stood in the picture, smiling, a smile Emily had never seen before. And beside him was a woman with bright eyes, holding his hand. Emily froze. So he did smile once. He did love once. Adrian quickly noticed her gaze. His jaw tightened. He snatched the photograph and slipped it into a drawer. "Don't look at things that are not your concern," he said sharply. Emily lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to." There was silence in the room, broken only by the sound of rain outside. For a moment, Adrian looked as if he wanted to say something, but instead, he turned back to his papers. Emily quietly walked out, but her heart was heavy. She had seen something in his eyes, pain, deep pain that no success could hide. That night, Adrian sat alone with the photograph in his hand. Memories he had buried years ago rose again. Her name was Isabella. She was the only woman he had ever loved. She had been kind, gentle, and full of life. He had once believed they would spend forever together. But fate had been cruel. Isabella had betrayed him. She had chosen money over love, leaving Adrian broken and humiliated. The scars of that betrayal had shaped the man he became, the cold millionaire who hated love. To him, love was nothing but a lie, a weakness that destroyed strong men. He had promised himself never to fall into that trap again. But now, with Emily in his life, his walls were cracking. And that terrified him. The next day, Emily arrived with her usual cheerful smile. She acted as if nothing had happened, but Adrian could not forget the way she had looked at that photograph. He felt exposed, vulnerable, and he hated that feeling. During lunch break, Emily found herself sitting alone in the small garden behind the office. To her surprise, Adrian appeared. He stood silently for a while before speaking. "What you saw yesterday, forget it." Emily looked at him gently. "I didn't see anything wrong, sir. I only saw that you are human, like the rest of us." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Human? No. Humans feel. Humans get hurt. I don't have time for that." Emily tilted her head. "But isn't it better to feel pain than to feel nothing at all?" Her words cut deep. For years, Adrian had believed that numbness was strength. But here was a girl, simple and honest, telling him that pain was not weakness but proof of being alive. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked away, his heart restless. That night, Adrian dreamed of Isabella. He woke up in anger, sweat on his forehead. "I will not be weak again," he told himself. "I will not trust anyone again." But even as he repeated those words, another voice inside him whispered Emily's sentence, "Isn't it better to feel pain than to feel nothing at all?" For the first time in years, Adrian didn't know which voice to believe. Adrian King had always believed he was in control of everything, his business, his empire, his heart. But now, with Emily in his life, that control was slipping. Every day she came closer, not by force, but by kindness. She was becoming the light in his dark world. And the more he felt, the more he feared. But Adrian was not the only one watching her. In the world of money and power, rivals were always waiting for a chance to attack. One of them was Victor Hale, a businessman who had lost deals to Adrian many times. Victor hated him, but he knew Adrian's weakness, his loneliness. When Victor noticed the young intern always near Adrian, he saw an opportunity. "If I can't destroy Adrian with business," Victor whispered to himself, "I will destroy him with emotions." One afternoon, Emily was leaving the office when Victor approached her outside. His voice was polite, his smile fake. "You must be the famous intern," he said smoothly. "Everyone is talking about you. Do you know how lucky you are to be noticed by Adrian King?" Emily was uncomfortable but replied respectfully, "I'm just doing my work." Victor leaned closer. "Be careful. Adrian King is not the man you think he is. He uses people, then throws them away. Don't let him fool you." Emily frowned. I don't believe you. Victor laughed softly. Of course you don't. But soon, you will see the truth. Emily walked away, but his words stayed in her mind like a shadow. She didn't want to doubt Adrian, but a small part of her wondered about the pain she had seen in his eyes. Meanwhile, Adrian was fighting his own battle. Every time he looked at Emily, his heart told him to protect her, to trust her, maybe even to love her. But his mind screamed, no. Love is weakness. If you let her in, she will break you like Isabella did. One evening, Adrian called Emily into his office. His voice was sharp, but his eyes were restless. Emily, he began, you should keep your distance from me. I am your boss, nothing more. Don't mistake kindness for something else. Emily's chest tightened. She had never thought of crossing lines, but his words felt like a wall slamming down. Sir, I respect you. I only want to do my job well. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. For a second, it seemed as if he wanted to say something else, something softer, but then he turned away. Good. Then keep it that way. Emily left the room with tears in her eyes, though she did not let him see. The next day, Victor struck again. He leaked false rumors into the company, whispering that Emily was using Adrian to rise in her career. Some employees began to look at her differently. The whispers grew louder. She's just pretending to be innocent. The boss will throw her out soon. Emily tried to ignore it, but the weight was heavy. She thought about leaving, but her heart told her to stay. She had seen something real in Adrian, something broken, something worth saving. That evening, Adrian overheard the rumors himself. His anger burned. He knew Victor's hand was behind this. But what hurt him more was the thought that maybe, just maybe, Emily would be safer away from him. His pride and his heart battled all night. Should he protect himself and push her away forever? Or should he take the risk and finally fight for something more than money, something called love? By morning, his decision was clear. When Emily entered the office, Adrian called her in. His voice was low but firm. Emily, do you trust me? She looked at him with surprised eyes. Yes, sir. I do. For a moment, the ice around his heart almost shattered completely. But then, before he could speak more, his phone buzzed. A message appeared on the screen. His eyes darkened as he read it. It was from Victor. You think she's different? Ask her what she's hiding. Adrian's chest tightened. Doubt, his old enemy, began to whisper again. Could he really trust her? Could he risk everything? The message from Victor burned in Adrian's mind like fire. You think she's different? Ask her what she's hiding. For hours, he sat in silence, torn between his heart and his doubts. He remembered Isabella's betrayal, the way she had smiled while breaking his trust. He had promised himself never to let anyone close again. And now, with Emily, he felt that same dangerous closeness. But when he looked at her, when he saw her eyes full of honesty, his heart whispered, she's not Isabella. She's not the past. She's different. Still, fear is powerful. That evening, Adrian called Emily into his office. His voice was heavy, darker than usual. Emily, he said, I need to ask you something. Have you been hiding anything from me? Any reason you came here other than this internship? Emily looked at him, shocked. No, sir. I came here only to learn. Why would you think otherwise? He stared into her eyes, searching for lies. But all he saw was truth. Still, doubt pulled him back. He clenched his fists. Be careful, Emily. People are saying things. People believe you are close to me for your own gain. Her lips trembled. And what do you believe? Adrian froze. He had no answer. Emily took a step closer, her voice soft but strong. I respect you, sir. Not because of your money, not because of your power, but because I see the man behind the walls. The man who feels pain but hides it. The man who deserves to feel love again. His heart ached. He wanted to believe her, but his pride, his fear, his old wounds, they all screamed against it. Before he could reply, his phone rang again. This time, it was a warning. Victor had arranged a deal to steal one of Adrian's biggest clients. It was a trap, designed not only to hurt his empire but also to prove that love had made him weak. Adrian's anger exploded. He stormed out of the office, ready to fight back. But Emily followed him. "Sir, wait. You can't face this with anger alone. Let me help." He turned sharply. "No. You will stay out of this. I won't let you be used against me." Emily stood her ground. "If you keep pushing people away, you will always fight alone. But if you trust me, just once, you will see I am not your enemy." Her words struck him like lightning. For years, he had chosen loneliness to protect himself. But now, for the first time, someone was offering to stand beside him. That night, Adrian confronted Victor at the meeting with the clients. Victor smirked, certain he had already won. "You're losing your edge, Adrian. That little intern of yours has made you weak." Adrian's jaw tightened. For a moment, he almost believed it. But then Emily, who had quietly joined the meeting, stepped forward. With calm confidence, she explained the truth to the clients, showing proof of Victor's lies and tricks. The clients turned against Victor, leaving him humiliated. Adrian stared at Emily in disbelief. She hadn't betrayed him. She had saved him. Victor stormed out, defeated. Adrian stood in silence, looking at the girl who had risked everything for him. His heart finally gave up the fight. Later, as they walked out of the building, Adrian stopped. The city lights glowed above them, but his eyes were fixed only on Emily. His voice was quiet, but his words carried weight. "I was wrong," he said. "I thought love was weakness. I thought kindness was a trap. But you proved me wrong." Emily's eyes softened. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. Sometimes love doesn't break us. Sometimes it saves us." For the first time in years, Adrian allowed himself to smile, a real smile, not the fake one he used for business. Slowly, carefully, he reached for her hand. Emily didn't pull away. She held it, gently but firmly, as if to tell him she wasn't going anywhere. Adrian King, the millionaire who once hated love, finally understood that fate had sent him Emily not to weaken him, but to make him whole again.